So I am a native of Buffalo. I born in Buffalo, SUNY graduate. Shout out to SUNY Brockport as well, which I'm getting an alumni award in a couple weeks. But I was on the city council for uh, 5 years, in the state senate for 4 years, and I've been involved with clean energy, diversity, equity, and justice initiatives on and off throughout my adult life. And I currently serve as the executive director of the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities, which is one of the 80 coalitions around the country promoting clean energy, transportation, and environmental justice and equity. And so we're really excited about the partnership that we have with the Clean Fuels Alliance of America and the Renewable Energy Group and some of the other folks that are promoting alternative fuels. We are fuel neutral. Our biggest thing is reducing America's dependence on foreign oil and promoting climate solutions that make sense in not only in transportation, but also in buildings, and make sure we have a green workforce that uses cleaner products and that utilizes cleaner energy.
So again, thank you. It was a pleasure having you join us at the Pathways to a Cleaner Future conference. And the whole theme of it, environmental equity with of your panel, environmental equity with liquid transportation and heating fuels. I'd like to start with asking you to just talk about how the use of biomass diesel is contributing to the health and wellness of people in the United States, and if we could bring it home here to New York as well.
Yeah, well, first let me say thank you for having me on your program. I want to thank the organizers of the conference, especially all the folks at Clean Fuels, for having me there. I currently run the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. We have a great partnership that focuses a lot around using biodiesel for vehicles, and with the DC Department of Public Works and the DC Water, and we have worked together to really retrofit a number of the diesel powered vehicles in the District of Columbia, Washington, DC, to make those vehicles more environmentally friendly. As you know, your listeners know, diesel fuels have a very negative impact on the environment, and has a very negative impact in underserved areas in particular, especially for young kids, which is one of the top reasons for kids not going to school for respiratory illnesses like asthma. And so we're really excited about this collaboration to use cutting edge technology and replacing diesel powered buses with biodiesel fuel. So we've been really excited about that. And it reduces anywhere from 70 to 80% of the toxins in the air as a result of using biodiesel as opposed to traditional diesel fuel.
And where are you sourcing your biodiesel?
So we, the biofuels industry, they get that from our renewable energy group is one of the big providers of the bio fuels that DC Water uses, and so how they get it all there is a different issue. They get it on trucks and stuff like that, but they're using REG, Renewable Energy Group, who recently merged with Chevron. So they're growing their footprint. We'd like to see biodiesel used more in New York as well. As you know, I'm a former state senator from Buffalo. Shout out to Buffalo and the Bills. But there are not enough. There are so many there's so many diesel vehicles, especially heavy duty vehicles on the road, and they're talking anywhere from 30 to 40 years before we get them all off the road. And we need an immediate solution, because you can have an immediate impact on reducing greenhouse gases. And places like New York are really short in terms of on having facilities where biodiesel was available. Meanwhile, we have thousands, tens of thousands of diesel powered vehicles on the road in New York. And I think this would be a great way to have immediate impacts on health, immediate impacts on the environment, and greenhouse gases as well.
What is more practical in when you want to get into biodiesel fuel? Is there a practical method of converting vehicles, or does it make more sense to buy new vehicles?
So I would say to you, it's more cost effective at this point to retrofit or repower existing vehicles, provided you look at, because you can do fleet analysis, either our office or other Clean City offices in New York, like Empire Clean Cities, can work with fleets, both public and private, and do a cost analysis to see, does it make more sense to retrofit or repower that vehicle with biodiesel, or does it make sense to go buy a new one? We will find that often it's more cost effective to repower, especially if that vehicle has another 10 or 7 to 10 years of life left on that vehicle. You're probably better just repowering it, because you can do that anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000, depending on that vehicle. And there are different companies that can help with that.
And how long have you been using it?
DC government has been on this program for about 3 or 4 years now. It's been very, very successful. We've worked with them using DERA grants, Diesel Emission Reduction Act grants. You can also use CMAQ funding, and you can also look at using some of your bond funds or O&M funds from the public sector as well. But we'd like to see both public and private entities using that. Diesel vehicles are all over the place in both the public and private sector. There's been this big focus on passenger vehicles, but the fact of and making those electric and hybrid vehicles, but we've not really gotten serious as a country and as a state of New York in terms of how do we really address the medium to heavy duty vehicles, right? We've got to get really serious about that, because the emissions from one diesel powered truck is the equivalent of anywhere from 7 to 11 cars, depending on the age of that diesel powered truck. So that's why we're saying, let's try to retrofit those vehicles. If you're a fleet manager, a corporation, both or public or private, and you're not really comfortable with the pace of electrification, we'll get you. You can repower or retrofit a diesel vehicle, or you can buy a biodiesel truck. And there are a number of vendors that we work with that can help make sure that you have the fuel, and that you have the technology, and your staff has the proper training as well.
About what percentage of your fleet has been converted?
So we're a third party, we're an independent nonprofit, and we've been able to work with DC Department of Public Works and DC Water. I don't know the exact number, a percentage that DC Water's used, but I know it's been well over 100 vehicles that have been converted from diesel to biodiesel. And the DC Department of Transportation right now, we're working with them, and they have a really big fleet as well. And they're looking to convert some of their old vehicles and some of the new vehicles that they're going to purchase. They're looking to do that as well. Also, Prince George's County, Maryland, We're working with them. They just recently submitted a grant application and to get some federal funding for biodiesel vehicles as well, because people who are on the front lines working with fleets, they want to make sure that as the technology continues to evolve around electrification, they want a reliable entity a reliable fuel that can reduce greenhouse gases and emissions, and also they know that can start up and reach its destination with minimal challenges. So that's why many fleets are reaching out to us regarding using biofuels.
Can you put the cost in perspective for when you deal with these governments or even private entities? How do you get them to accept the cost?
Yeah, it's very comparable. By the challenge. So if we were thinking about getting a new electric trash truck, which I love those, but it's almost 2 to 2.5 times the cost of a regular diesel powered truck, right? So getting a biodiesel truck is almost comparable, maybe 5% more. And so they can live with that. The to transition to an electric truck, it's a it's anywhere from 2 to 2.5 times. So that's a big pill for folks to swallow. And if you say, hey, you know what, you have 500 trash trucks or snow plows that are diesel powered, we can help you. For $5 million, you can retrofit half of those and have an immediate impact. And city councils would love to see that, right? Because you're not saying in 20 years or 30 years we're going to see those reductions. You'll be able to see those reductions faster, because they can literally retrofit those vehicles within a year's time, that number, and you save money and you improve the climate as well, and improve the health for people in those underserved areas.
What's been easier, getting the getting the government sector to adopt, or the private sector?
Our focus so far has been on the public sector. However, right now we are increasing our education and outreach to include the private sector as well, because many private sector institutions have sustainability goals, and some of them may not be as familiar with this technology. And so we are pushing hard over the next 12 to 24 months to do a lot more education to private fleets as well.
And from the work you've been doing as a nonprofit, can you talk a little bit about the progress you've made to the eventual goal of equity?
Yeah, so that's a really, really big thing that I've spent my entire life focused on, is equity, justice, diversity, and inclusion. I'm always back in these spaces for some reason, but so we've made some progress. When working with the DC, we're making sure that as they retrofit these vehicles, that they're developing a plan and strategy to make sure that cleaner vehicles are being equitably deployed in throughout the District of Columbia, which is really, really important, because if you don't plan and track things, you'll find that cleaner vehicles are concentrated in areas where air quality is the best. So that's really important that we do that. We're also doing listening sessions as well. So we've had 2 equity, energy, transportation, and environmental equity listening sessions in the District of Columbia. this year. We have another one coming up the end of October. And then we're doing one in Prince George's County, which is just outside of the District of Columbia as well. And really talking with residents about air quality, about transportation, about energy equity. And it's really given us a chance to listen and learn, bring good information, and find out just how people feel about some of these issues. And one of the things we found is that a lot of the underserved areas feel like these resources don't get to their areas enough. I was astonished by how many people knew at least one person in their immediate family or on their street that is suffering from some type of respiratory illness. And that number, over 70% of the people that have attended our meetings have said they know at least one person that is suffering from some form of respiratory illness. And of course, I would passionately suggest and argue that it probably stems from poor air quality as a result of transportation.
Historically, yes, these areas have been trafficked by so many large vehicles, diesel spewing trucks. They've driven up asthma rates in New York City historically through communities like the Bronx and out in Brooklyn as well. Any area where there's highways, correct, and heavy industry. Have you seen any impediments that, towards adoption, hurdles that seem insurmountable with either the government sector, the public sector, or the private sector?
I think the biggest challenge is two big challenges right now. One is just making sure that we educate policymakers about the technology and making sure that they understand that this is a way to improve the climate faster in a reliable way. I mean, the Department of Energy strongly supports biofuels, and the EPA does as well. And then the other big thing is just making sure that people understand that supporting biofuels does not mean that you can't do other projects around electrification, right? Electrification is there. We support it. We have projects around that. It is very costly, and we still have to deal with all the challenges that come from creating electricity and reliability on the grid. So you can do both, right? And I don't believe that America should create another sole source primary fuel that's 80% or 90% of our fuels are electric, so that we recreate what we have with the oil industry. So I believe in fuel diversity. I think America needs to have a fuel mix that's better than it is right now, because it's not very diverse in this country, and we should not go back. We should not put the same onus on our great grandchildren and great great grandchildren that was put on us, where now we're totally dependent on foreign entities for powering our planes and powering our cars and trucks and passenger and work vehicles.
Can you take that one step further and show me how, talk to me a little bit about how biodiesel fuel can work with electric?
Yeah, and there are a lot of different technologies that are out there that I'm still learning every day. But there are ways in which you can use biodiesel, and it's not only as a backup, but also as a complement to your existing fleets, right? So there's nothing wrong with having vehicles that are powered with biodiesel and then having an array of electric vehicles. And then there are some folks that are using biodiesel as a way to support efforts for electrification as well. And so there are different ways in which people are doing that too. So there's a lot of good things that are out there.
Well, this has been a fascinating follow-up to the panel. Did you would you I'm sorry, did you want to bring up anything that you that was mentioned at the panel that we haven't touched upon?
I would say two things. One is that I hope, as someone who was the first Democrat to chair the Committee on Environmental Conservation in over 40 years, when I chaired that committee in 2009 and 2010, I was the first African American to chair that committee as well, and I carried the climate action law, which has evolved and which was passed by the state legislature in the last couple of years. In that legislation, though, it does not recognize biofuels as a way to reduce greenhouse gases. And I think that needs to change. That is a policy fix that should happen. And, I'm willing to do whatever I can to encourage New York to make sure that they do two things. One, make sure that there's a renewable fuel standard and credit for New York State, and then also that biofuels is part of the mix for the climate solutions for New York State. So those are two really important things that I believe are extremely essential, that needs to get done by the next year for the State Senate Assembly and our great governor, Kathy Hochul.